Well, good morning! We've got another video here from the IC82 channel, and this is a Hornby one. As you can see, it's nearly the end of Series 4 Prologue now, which is really good, really good, except this locomotive isn't really good, which is a shame, because so far up to now we've had a pretty good run, haven't we? But this particular one, no, it leaves a lot to be desired, I'm afraid. It's a Caledonian single. That's what they've called it. It's a Caledonian single. And I do believe that that is actually its official class. Quite an odd style of locomotive. Very old. Very weak. I mean, when the LMS incorporated it, they gave it the classification 1P, which is basically the lowest power rating there is. So it's a not very powerful locomotive at all. By the way, that noise you can hear in the background, yeah, that's the rain. So if I just pan the camera up, you can see outside that it's absolutely horrible. Apologies for that, but not even I am powerful enough to control the weather yet. Not yet, anyway. So there's not much we can do about it. So yeah, moving on. The classification of this was just 1P, very weak. Very old, came out in the late 19th century, so 1880 something or something like that, I'm not too sure. But it's Scottish. Oh aye, it's from the Highlands of Scotland, I think. Now, I've got to get this out because I need to show you something. Now this is the huge sheets that Hornby do in some of their train sets. Can you see, where is it? Ah, yes, there we go. Can you see that particular one there? See, that's the same thing, except that came out later. This model came out in 2007, and that model there came out in 2010, and that was known as the last single wheeler or something. What does that say? Yeah, the last single wheeler, and they called it the LMS Dean single. Now, I'm not too sure if it's the Dean single, because another locomotive that's called the Dean is this one here. Do you see that? Just there? But that's not Scottish. That's from the GWR. And look at its dome on the top of the boiler and this little bit here. It's slightly... oh, look at the tender as well. It's not the same as this. But around the same time, this design of locomotive, this configuration with one gigantic driving wheel and then just one trailing wheel and then four at the front. This type of configuration was very popular around the late 19th century. So they were being built up in Scotland, and they were being built by the GWR, wherever that was built. But you see, they called that there, if it's going to focus, the Duke of Edinburgh Dean Class 3031 Achilles class. Yeah, a locomotive with 3 names. How user-friendly is that? But because of that, it's really confusing. There's a lot of people that don't really know what class this locomotive is. Well, I think the simplest thing to do, and I might be wrong, I'm sure somebody will correct me because you're very good at that, but I think the simplest thing to do is to call the GWR ones Deans, and to call the LMS ones, or, well, you know, any of the ones that were from Scotland and so became part of the LMS, to call those single wheelers. Just simply call them single wheelers. Because it used to be the Caledonian Railway, you see. But they didn't give them any proper number or anything like that. So we'll call it the single wheeler. They've called it the Caledonian single, and we'll call it the single wheeler. Right, well, I better open it up and show you just how super detailed it is. Yeah, just how super detailed. That's a lie, by the way. Okay, well, it's still raining. It's only been a few seconds, well, yeah, alright. Right, okay, typical Hornby packaging. Let's just get it out really carefully. Okay, and just get that out of shot. Right, Well, you remember how it said it was super detailed? Yeah, well, it's not. It's not at all. In fact, I would barely even call it railroad, to be honest. There you go. Look at that. Cab detail? Pfft, you'd be lucky. You're lucky there's a cab. No, there's nothing. And the piping? No, that's not piping. That's just part of the moulded plastic forming the boiler. And it doesn't stop there. The tender is even worse. Look at this. This is like, I think I said this in the first video, it's like something from Fisher-Price. I mean, just even look at the coupling mechanism. Look at that. Oh, get on. There we go. I suppose it does the job, but it's not really brilliant, is it? It's a little bit kiddified. And this tender has got just one gigantic moulded piece of coal. There's nothing you can do about that. You would have to surgically remove it. There's no other way I can, well, unless you maybe, I suppose what you could do is very carefully cover it up with your own coal load and just leave this underneath. Maybe you could rasp it down, file it down. I don't know, you've got to be careful because you don't want to damage the livery on the side. That livery is actually not too bad. But again, that's where it stops. Because the couplings are huge. In fact, there was one on the front of this too, but you can see I have taken it off. Oh yes. That little screw there was holding in a coupling on the front, and I removed that because it really didn't need it, it was just silly. But the coupling on the back obviously needs to be there, and it's a giant one, which is great for tight curves, but not great for realistic layouts. The buffers are not sprung. Again, you're lucky you've got buffers, to be honest, so don't complain. And it's the same on the front. And, well, there's nothing else to show you. There's nothing else to talk about. That is how basic it is. How... Hornby, I know you watch these videos, so how can you call this super detailed? It's not super detailed. Now, before tons of people go and complain or maybe leave me a comment or whatever, I've had it on good authority that the other two I showed you are much better. Nope, that's not them, is it? There we go. So the GWR single wheeler there is actually supposed to be quite good. And my mate Nick, who runs the LMS 16440 channel, I think he's got the single wheeler we see here, the last single wheeler. I'm pretty sure he has. I could be mistaken. But he says that that's pretty good as well. So, everybody else has got a great single wheeler. And I've got the dud. Fantastic. I can't complain too much because it wasn't expensive. It was reduced. It should have been 50 or 60 and I think I got it for about 45 or something. And I'm glad I did. Because if I'd have paid full price for this, I can tell you now, I'd have been marching back into that shop and throwing it in his face. It's terrible. It's the worst locomotive I've got out of the entire collection. The detail is more or less non-existent. And I think there's a total of about 12 rivets on the entire model. Maybe that's accurate, maybe they just didn't use them then, maybe they used PVA, but I doubt it. Now, its motor isn't even very good. You've got traction tyres for a start, which isn't great, is it? There's a little seed from outside. So yeah, the traction tyres aren't great. And, well, as for its haulage capability, I don't know. I've never tested it. It's only pulled the odd train, but it is DCC ready. How crazy is that? They've actually made it DCC ready. To be honest, it's a bit of a waste of a chip. And in my honest opinion, the DCC chip is worth more than the entire model. But anyway, I suppose I should put it on the track and show you how it runs. Okay, so here we are at this part of the layout again today. It is daytime, but it's very early morning, so the light level's not quite up to maximum yet. so I'm going to use this part of the layout. And it just so happens that Thomas and his breakdown train are in today, which is just as well, because we might be needing him later because of this pile of junk. No, I mean, I don't mean to be so, so negative and so cynical, because I do love this class of locomotive, both the Scottish one and the GWR one. I think it's a great design, and there aren't enough old locomotives like this, are there? I mean, I don't know what it's called, but I'm sure some of you will know. Bachmann are bringing out a fantastic model this year, well, 2013, and I think it's in a really nice green livery, but it's a dead old model. It's like, again, from around the turn of the century, basically, sort of 1900s or something. And so it's pretty much in the same sort of year group as this, but the differences couldn't be more extreme. This is just so basic. It's such a shame. They could have done an amazing job on this. They really could. And LMS is my favourite livery, because obviously it's where I live. Although I do love GWR and LNER and Southern too, but obviously I wanted an LMS one of this, and it's terrible. Really is terrible. So I was really disappointed with that. Absolutely gutted. I really was. She is chipped, so firing it up should be okay. I'll just do that now. Okay, I'm back. It's actually an hour later. It's still raining, as you can hear. I hope that's not too loud, by the way. I hope the camera's not picking that up too much. But you'll notice the camera's moved slightly, and here's the locomotive without its tender. That's because it spent the last hour in crew works. That's how bad it is. It wouldn't move at all. Nothing. Come on, get back on. Right. This model is so bad that it barely runs at all. And I'll tell you why. Because, if I just take it off again, it's all to do with the bottom of it. Because these middle two driving wheels have traction tyres, they basically don't pick up anything. Even though Hornby have put some pickups in there to try and pick up anything it does collect. The back wheels are doing as much work as they can, and you can see the pickup there. You see that big bar? I'll show you, just there, that big bar. Yeah, you can see it there, and you can see the one for the big wheels just there. Well, they're trying to pick up as much electricity as they can, but basically all of the work comes down to these here, this front truck. You can see the wire. You see the wires there? There is actually two wires. Yeah, there they go. Well, I've had to bend this bar in order to try and get it to pick up as much electricity as possible, because it's so light and so flimsy, as you can see, that it's not picking up enough electricity. And so the minute it goes over an express point or one of those diamond points or something like that, it just dies completely. The whole model can't pick up enough electricity to keep it running, and it's not helped by the tender, because the wheels on the tender are plastic. They are actually plastic, so you couldn't even put pickups on them if you wanted to. That's how bad it is. Oh, honestly, I mean, I understand why they put the traction tyre on the big driving wheel, because it's is the only driving wheel, so it needs as much traction, as much grip as it can get. But to be honest, they'd be better taking those traction tyres off, so at least these wheels can pick up electricity as well, and putting loads of ballast inside to make it really heavy. Or they could have just made the tender pick up tons of electricity and just pass it to the motor. But instead, they put plastic wheels on, and they're non-standard wheels either, so it's not exactly easy to replace. The whole model is seriously a joke. It's absolutely terrible. And it's such a shame, because it could be so nice. It could be amazing. People tell me the GWR one is better and that the last single wheeler is better. Well, go for them then, because this one is truly, truly awful. It's not worth the chip it's got inside it. Really isn't. I could try and turn it into a project and do lots of work to it to make it better. I could try. It's not going to be easy. I really don't know how, with those non-standard wheels being on the tender. It's going to be incredibly difficult. But yeah, it's basically just a waste of time, this model is. And that's a shame. That's a real shame. I'll try and show you it running as much as I can, because when it runs pretty well. It just doesn't like running. In fact, it stopped again, right now. Okay, so there it goes. And stop. And go again. This express point here, because it's basically got an inch of dead zone, it killed it. The front truck could not compensate for such a huge dead zone, so it stopped dead. And then just as it died, the front wheels, the very front two, touched the rail again, so it started moving again. But yeah, its performance is just, it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Such a shame, because it looks so nice. Look at it. It looks unlike anything else on the whole layout. But the minute it comes to some express points, stop. In fact, it's not even managed to carry on this time. So in comes the hand of God, give it a little bit of a push, and off it goes again. It's just a joke. Absolutely terrible. It could be so much better, and it's not. And it's a shame, because it ruins it. And she's even got good slow speed performance, look at that. Although, to be honest, that's the chip that's making that look so impressive. That's not really the motor. The pickups are working as well, they're working better than they've ever worked right now, but it's still not good enough. It's taken an awful lot of work to get it to do that. Yeah, seriously, it took an hour in Crew Works, and it's just as well I know what I'm doing. A lot of people don't, and so they'll be severely disappointed. And it's made even worse by the fact that I have some really nice coaches for her too. Okay, I'm back, and I've got some gorgeous coaches for her. Look at these. I got these especially for her. Just look at them. Look how nice that is. Let me just get it to back up a little bit. Look how period that looks. Oh, it stopped again. Dead. Go on, move. Go. That's just not good enough, is it? That's just not good enough. It's okay, they're express points, and they do have the biggest dead zone in all of railway history. But, you know, lots of layouts do have dead zones. The locomotives should have enough pickups to survive just a little bit of a dead zone. Most of them make it across fine. Even Thomas makes it across absolutely fine. But this particular one, because of the way it's been built, and because it's so cheap and so poorly made, it doesn't stand a chance, which is a real shame, because with those coaches, it looks brilliant. Ugh. Sorry passengers for you being jolted and thrown to the front of the train. This is a really, really poorly built locomotive. Do you know, I've had enough. I've had enough, to be honest. I have. This is the first time this has ever happened, but this locomotive has sapped it all out for me. It's just not fun. I don't want to continue the vid anymore.